I called him a liar.
Well, I'm glad
He lied about Republicans wanting to cut Medicare and Social Security.
Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority.
That's not true. He's lying. Just his general economic gaslighting
was fundamentally dishonest.
Maybe Joe Biden's living in a parallel universe.
No Republican wants to get rid of Medicare and Social Security.
He's the most corrupt president in American history.
Joe Biden is weak, and Joe Biden doesn't know anything he's talking about. That's the state of our union.
So Republicans have responded to President Joe Biden's State of the Union address last night. And as you saw, they got really riled up with that Social Security statement that they wanted to make cuts after we had just heard them say there would be no cuts whatsoever. Well, I'm going to be sharing with you their responses. And in here, we're going to be taking a look at Dan Crenshaw, Lauren Boebert, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mitt Romney, Steve Scalise, and stick around to the end for former President Donald Trump as he says, here's the real State of the Union for America. And also, let me know your thoughts. In my last video, I asked you guys, were these statements made by the president, were they gaslighting, were they misinformation, or were they just warning to the GOP should they decide that they want to do cuts to Social Security and Medicare? Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and take a look at these and see the responses of the GOP to that speech last night.
The best part about tonight was Nancy Pelosi not sitting behind the podium at the State of the Union. I was seriously disappointed in Biden's speech tonight. No real solutions on the border, nor did he take responsibility for the invasion of millions of illegals entering our country. No proposal on how to end the fentanyl poisoning killing Americans, no vision for how to lower inflation. He attacked and disparaged American energy producers. He lied about Republicans wanting to cut Medicare and Social Security. We made it very clear tonight that is off the table. All Joe Biden did was try and personally take credit for America recovering from the COVID pandemic when Democrats shut down our businesses, schools, and churches. There was no hint on ending vaccine mandates for healthcare workers. Instead of lies and grandstanding, Joe Biden should come to the terms with the fact that Republicans now control the House, and he needs to start negotiating with us if he wants anything to pass. Another fail for Joe Biden tonight. The best thing I can say about the speech is it's over. Now let's make Biden's next State of the Union his last.
What's up, y'all? Okay, top 5 things I did not like about the State of the Union. And no, this list is not comprehensive, so don't yell at me for not mentioning something. Number 1, he spent about 4 lines talking about the border. He had the nerve to talk about the fentanyl crisis without mentioning the drug cartels that are causing the fentanyl crisis. I feel like that could be a bipartisan issue. He claimed that he got gas prices down. Yeah, gas prices down from a record high that he created. Number 3, he said that Republicans want to sunset Social Security, just cut it away. That's not true. He's lying. It's a lot more complicated than that. And by the way, the people who want to cut Social Security and Medicare, it's Democrats, and they'll do so by doing nothing because you actually have to save these programs so that they last. Number 4, this was a big lie. He claims he has had a record decrease in the deficit, that it's President Trump that spent all of our money and increased our deficit to record levels. Okay, here's the reality. It was the last year of Trump's presidency because of COVID spending, of course, saving small businesses because of Democrat governor lockdowns. That's what caused a massive deficit under the Trump administration. In Biden's first 2 years, he's already surpassed what Trump's deficit spending was in the first 3 years. That's the actual truth. Number 5, just his general economic gaslighting. This claim that wages have gone up, even though real wages have been down for years now. This claim that he's created all of these jobs. All of this nonsense, that's because of COVID. That's because of Democrat-imposed lockdowns that caused a recession. President Biden got the benefit of taking the presidency as Republican governors and a Republican president were getting us out of that mess. That's the truth, and I don't like that kind of gaslighting. Other than that, it was a great speech. Just kidding.
So I just left the State of the Union. I got to say it was a disappointing speech. It was angry. It was divisive. It was fundamentally dishonest. Joe Biden stood up there and sounded like an angry man on his front lawn yelling, "Get off my lawn." He refused to take responsibility for the policy failures of this administration, refused to take responsibility for rampaging inflation, for out-of-control crime, for the chaos at the southern border. He had the gall to say, quote, support my plan to secure the southern border, when it's his policies that have created open borders and have resulted in the worst illegal immigration in our nation's history and the most overdoses in our nation's history. You know, this speech could have been an opportunity for Biden to reach out to the new Republican majority to acknowledge that more than 2/3 of Americans recognize we're on the wrong path. But tonight, Joe Biden indicated he doesn't care what the American voters think. He's going to double down on failed policies despite the harm they're causing. This was a disappointing speech. It was an angry speech. It was a divisive speech.
I just got back to my office after listening to the State of the Union with Joe Biden, and part of the time we couldn't really understand what he was saying as he was yelling at people, yelling through the applause and mumbling through his words. Some of the things that we did hear didn't make any sense. Joe Biden claimed to care about the border and talked about fentanyl deaths, which is the #1 cause of young people ages 18 to 45, but yet has no plan to secure the border. And frankly, we all know he doesn't care about the border because Joe wants the border wide open. That's the whole problem with Joe. We also heard him talk about McDonald's non-compete fees. Well, I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't hear anybody at home worrying about these terrible fights between different fast food companies. Joe Biden did talk a lot about communism, though, and controlling private companies, and I think that's something that should concern every single American and every single business owner. I will tell you one thing Joe Biden did lie about. He didn't know what he was talking about a lot of the time, but he did frankly lie, talking about Republicans and Social Security and Medicare. We have not talked about cutting Social Security and Medicare. Joe Biden has been claiming that we're going to cut Social Security and Medicare, but we're not. So we called him out on the House floor. I called him a liar because that's what Joe Biden is. Either he doesn't know what he's talking about or he's just flat out lying. The one thing he did not talk about was the one thing he should have talked about. He should have apologized to America for the Chinese spy balloon that he allowed to traverse across our country, spy on our military bases, spy on our food factories, spy on our cities, spy on our entire country. They knew about it on January 28th, still allowed it to enter our airspace, spy on our country, and never did a damn thing about it until it left our country on February 4th. Joe Biden is weak. Joe Biden can't stand up to China. Joe Biden cannot protect our country. He can't protect our borders. And Joe Biden doesn't know anything he's talking about. That's the state of our union.
Tonight, President Biden talked about the state of the union in the United States. And maybe Joe Biden's living in a parallel universe, but what I've seen and heard all across the country, and especially in South Louisiana, is that families are struggling. When you see gas prices 40% higher since Joe Biden took office, anytime we go to the grocery store, we're paying double digits more for everything that we buy. You look at our open southern border, not just the millions of people who have come across illegally, but the drugs that they're bringing in, the deaths of so many young people. We've lost 100,000 young people last year to fentanyl because of the open southern border. If you look at crime in communities all across America because of the radical leftist shift of the defund the police movement. And then, of course, when you look at our foreign policy, it isn't just what's happening in Afghanistan, what you saw in Ukraine. Look at what happened just over the weekend. The Chinese sent a spy balloon to traverse all across America, going over some of our most sensitive military bases. And what was the response from Joe Biden? Absolutely nothing. Our enemies are looking at the weakness of America, and more importantly, families are struggling under the weight of the far left policies of Joe Biden. We can do better. We've laid out, Republicans in the House, a commitment to America, a plan to actually fix these problems, to lower inflation, to lower energy costs, to secure America's border, to stand up for parents who want to be more involved in their kids' education, and to stand up to the bullies around the world. I know we can do better. I will continue fighting for you and for the values that make this country the greatest in the history of the world.
You know, I just got back from hearing the president deliver his State of the Union address. The president's a friend. I like Joe Biden. I have come to know him over the years. And he's a patriotic man who believes very deeply in the things that he talks about. I was pleased that he spoke about Ukraine and about our commitment to preserve democracy there and around the world, to preserve sovereignty of nations. I hope it's a message that we learn, which is if a nation is relatively weak or perceived as being weak, they are susceptible to being attacked by a stronger neighbor. It's one reason we keep America strong, very strong, hopefully so strong no one ever wants to test our will. So make sure that we continue to commit our resources to keep our military as the strongest in the world. I was happy also that he spoke about China and our commitment to preserving our friendships and alliances in the world, and the idea that China should be in competition with us but not in conflict with us. The president got off on the wrong foot when he said that some Republicans, he said, want to cut Medicare and Social Security. And there was just an immediate response from our side of the aisle where people said, no, that's just not true. No Republican wants to get rid of Medicare and Social Security, of the elected Republicans that I know of, certainly not in the Senate. And no one's proposing lowering the benefits. That was just plain and simple wrong. And I think you could probably tell he had to backtrack as he raised that topic and saw such a chorus of response. He also decided to talk about the deficit in a way that I thought was a bit disingenuous. He said he's brought the deficit down, and if you look at the math, why, in fact, it's come down. But what he ignored was the reason the deficit was so big before he came into office was we had an emergency plan as a result of COVID. And so money was being spent to help families, hospitals, airlines, businesses, small and large. And we spent a lot of money, trillions of dollars, trying to maintain the American economy. And yeah, that emergency is over, so we're not able to spend that money anymore. And for him to say that somehow he's fought to reduce the deficit is just kind of an exaggeration, let's put it that way. I wish he'd have spent some time talking about the deficit, however, and the debt that our nation has. I mean, as is the inclination of my Democrat friends, they typically rehearse a whole series of things they want to spend money on, which is what he did. And it's hard not to applaud for all the things he said he wants to do, but I know all those things cost money. And the question is, where are we going to get all this money? How are we going to reduce the deficit and the debt if we're going to be spending more and more and more money? And that I thought was an opportunity missed. He really, in my opinion, would have been better off being straight with the American people, saying that we're going to have to make some careful choices, just like American families do. We can't spend more on everything. We're going to have to eliminate some things that are not necessary. He didn't do that. So there was no real, if you will, painful medicine, untasty medicine that he delivered to the American people. Look, I was appreciative of the fact that I could be there and listen. I do agree with him that the nation is strong. We're going through some challenging times right now because of inflation. Inflation, by the way, that he caused. He and our Democrat friends, in addition to Ukraine's invasion and COVID, they spent $1.9 trillion without a single Republican vote in the House or the Senate. $1.9 trillion poured money out to states and enterprises all over the country, and it created more demand that caused more inflation. It's just the reality, and that's one of the things that's contributing to the difficult times that so many American families are facing. So a quick recap. There's a lot more. Obviously, he touched on a lot of topics, but I thought you might enjoy at least my immediate response as I got to listen to the president. Thanks much.
Here's the real State of the Union. Over the past 2 years under Biden, millions and millions of illegal aliens from 160 different countries have stormed across our southern border. Drug cartels are now raking in billions of dollars from smuggling poison to kill our people and to kill our children. Savage killers, rapists, and violent criminals are being released from jail to continue their crime wave, and under Biden, the murder rate has reached the highest in the history of our country. Biden and the radical Democrats have wasted trillions of dollars and caused the worst inflation in half a century. Real wages are down 21 months in a row. Gas prices have soared and are now going up much higher than even before. And the typical American family is paying $2,200 in increased energy and food costs each year. Joe Biden's weaponized Justice Department, and I'm a victim of it, is persecuting his political opponents. His administration is waging war on free speech. They're trying to indoctrinate and mutilate our children. He's leading us to the brink of World War III. And on top of all of that, he's the most corrupt president in American history, and it's not even close. But the good news is we are going to reverse every single crisis, calamity, and disaster that Joe Biden has created. I am running for president to end the destruction of our country and to complete the unfinished business of making America great again. We will make our country better than ever before, and we will always put America first. Thank you.
Man, so there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, I'll keep you all up to date on this as we're going to be seeing what unfolds here, especially with Social Security and Medicare. Now, if you want to see the reaction to that Social Security statement in full, check out this video right here as I cover it in detail for you. Check out this one next if you missed it. But you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to date on everything. If you made it this far and haven't already, don't forget, smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.